Victor Wembanyama had an okay playoff debut, I would say. We're going to talk about it. We also got Luke Kennard and the Lakers getting a big win against the Rockets, and the Magic upset the Pistons, or the Pistons in trouble. We're breaking down all the games from the weekend on the All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who was on the call over the weekend for the Lakers game. We're going to talk about that one. Legs, some good games over the weekend, but also a lot of blowouts over the weekend. How you doing?
Yeah, more blowouts than I would love to see on that opening weekend, man. Everybody gets so juiced for it, 4 straight games both days, and you don't like to see that many blowouts. But I think what you saw, Adam, were some of the top teams in this league and teams that, think have a chance to win it all just play well against obviously inferior teams, and some of those teams even shorthanded. And so those are the kind of results you get. And I believe we only had one road win, correct? I was wondering who would be the first road team to win a game. And honestly, and we should have probably talked about that. It would have been a great question to set up the weekend. Who's going to be the first road team to win? And honestly, I would have put the Orlando Magic in that category, just because I think stylistically and coming off the game they just played, I thought stylistically, physically, they can match up with a team like Detroit. So I would have said, hey, maybe them, but I still wouldn't have thought it. Yeah. But that's the only road win we had, man. So far, status quo for all these series.
I can't wait till we get to that series, because I actually think that one is really interesting. I got to give the Magic credit. I was a doubter for sure. We talked about it after that first play-in game. They did not look great. We thought, how much spirit do they have left? Well, all they've done is played phenomenally since then. So I can't wait till we get to that one. But we're going to open with the top story. What I think is the top story, probably for most shows, because it was the top story in the NBA, and that was Victor Wembanyama makes his playoff debut, and it was a memorable one. How about this, Legs? 21 points in the first quarter, most points for a debut in the first half of a playoff game since 1998. 35 points in the game, which was a franchise record, a Spurs franchise record for a playoff debut. And to be honest, felt better than that. Felt even better than just 35 points. 5 of 6 from the three-point line. His defense was obviously incredible, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But to me, when Wemby makes his three-pointers, and he was just in a zone in this one right off the bat, right from the opening minutes, he was knocking down threes. When he's making those, he really is kind of unstoppable. I don't know what you do with him when the 7'4" guy is just draining threes to open up a 10-point lead early in a game.
Yeah, I mean, that might be my favorite game that Wemby played all year offensively, this game, because it's one thing he makes some threes. He'll do that some nights, but it was the way he was getting to his own offense and the threes he was taking off the dribble. The one he ran down off the catch in the left corner, that was so much like you would see a classic pure shooting guard do. And it almost was like a late clock.
Say who it reminds you of. Don't just say classic shooting guard.
That was like a Klay Thompson type of shot. Yeah. It was. He basically ran from the top of the key on a dead sprint all the way over to the left corner. And it wasn't like it was, the end of the quarter. It was just like, no, I'm going to go hunt a shot right now. And at 7'5", I'm going to go run this down. And first of all, his feet barely fit in the corner, with his heel not touching the sideline. So there's not a lot of room in there. That was, to me, the most impressive shot of the night. But he had another one where he went coast to coast in the open floor behind his back around Avdija, and then spun off of Avdija and went in for a dunk. Man, it was a show. It was a spectacle. It was just so impressive, the number of different types of shots he made in the game. But you're right, the three-point shooting, when he gets into that kind of rhythm where he's really feeling it from out there, because he can get it off whenever he wants. I just don't know. You're kind of at his mercy. And I was so impressed with San Antonio's performance, because I thought Denver really played hard the entire time. They're a team that's difficult to put away because they never stop. I'm sorry, Portland. They never stop playing hard. The Blazers just continue to come at you. And yet they got hit with one response after another by the Spurs because of their depth and their ability to play both ends of the floor equally in stretches that are dominant. San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Boston, all teams that we expect to be, in the mix here to potentially win it, just absolute dominant performances on both ends of the floor in their first game.
Yeah, it really was an impressive game from the team. Like, there were a lot of guys that stepped up. Vassell had a huge moment. I'm sure we're going to talk about. All of the young guys contributed in moments that were like tense, because San Antonio controlled this game, but there were moments when Portland made runs or just punched back, and it was impressive of them, to your point, to stay in it. But I thought all of the young Spurs guys did a good job of sort of just handling the moment, their first big moment. But Wemby, to me, was the story. And here's the first thing I'll say. Defensively, he's just always going to be great. In the playoffs, you wanted to see, okay, how does he get tested? How are teams going to say, okay, we think there's a little bit of a vulnerability here? Two things I thought stood out. One, when you go with the big fella, Klingon, and you try to play the pick and pop game or just try to stretch him out to the court, Wemby has this unbelievable ability to wall off the paint and close out to the three-point shot to take away both. Usually you have to pick between the two. Which one are you going to do? Klingon only got 3 threes up, I believe, in this game. Is that right? Yeah, 0 for 3. And I think the game plan was to get him a lot more than that. He has a little bit of a slow shot, but Wemby was able to wall off the paint and get there. And then the other thing defensively, Portland has this small ball. It's like a really tall, athletic, small ball lineup that I think you could try to talk yourself into. You're going to spread it out. Wemby was able to shut that down too. And so I think there's 2 fastballs that Portland had in their repertoire that was like, okay, let's see how this works against Wemby specifically and if it takes him out. And I'd say they went 0 for 2 pretty definitively on both of those things.
Yeah, they did. I mean, look, they're not a great 3-point shooting team, and that's, something I think you have to do against the Spurs. And so that's going to be a problem for them. They're a great offensive rebounding team. They only had 8 in this game. So like those are things that are just going to happen against San Antonio. Spurs defense, like, their offense, first of all, I don't know that I would say I'd pick one end of the floor that I like more than the other. They're a complete team. That's why they won 60 games. That's why there's a team that can win it, because they can beat you either way.
Yeah.
Their defense in this game was relentless. And I was giving Portland credit because they were hitting them with these little mini runs to stay in it. And I called the game late in the year, Portland, San Antonio. And it was a very similar game. Like San Antonio up 16. Then it was back to 8. Then it was 14. And then it was like 7. And that's kind of what they do. And I have a lot of respect for the Blazers because of it. But at the same time, eventually, their defense is going to wear you down. It's only going to take 4 or 5 empty trips. And you look up, and now it finally is 18. It's 20. And it's not enough time left, and it's going to be it. And I felt that's what San Antonio did to them. The one thing I was watching Portland, and one thing I do feel bad for them in that Shaedon Sharpe is a big-time talent. He had he's had a great year last year, 20-point score this year. He's only played 4 games since the All-Star break. Like he's just not himself. And against a team like this, you need everybody, and you need one of your best athletes and a guy that can put the ball in the basket to be better than he is capable of being right now. I thought that was a big difference because he actually had some good shots, some good attempts, and he could be like a guy that can really keep it closer to make the home team feel some pressure in that situation. He's just not there right now. So it really falls mostly in the lap of Avdija, who played very well, but he did not get enough help, and they did not shoot the ball nearly well enough to be able to really test the Spurs.
So what else stood out to you about this one? I think the defense is obviously a huge story. 98 points. What was the offensive rating? 102.1 offensive rating. Extremely low for the Portland Trail Blazers. But what else stood out to you about the Spurs that was impressive?
I think the biggest thing for me was, you're dealing with Wemby, and this is a night that he's got it going, right? That's a lot to deal with. You've got Castle, you've got Fox, you've got these guys. And even if in those periods of time when you're doing enough against them and you're creeping back into the game, they are so deep, it could be anybody else. And it was Vassell in this game. I thought Vassell's stretch in the third quarter.
Yeah, for sure.
When he went crazy, and he went crazy on both ends of the floor. He was blocking shots at the rim. He was coming up with steals. And on the other end, he was hitting threes and getting to mid-range. I thought that little burst, it's almost like, you're looking at Thiago Splitter, and he's probably thinking like, man, like it's going to come from here now. And not that he's not capable. Of course he is. But, you're finally starting to get it back into like, you're thinking like, okay, working margin here, maybe going into the fourth quarter. And Vassell just took over the game. That's how deep they are. And maybe another night it's not Vassell. Maybe it's Keldon Johnson next time. Maybe it's Dylan Harper for a stretch at some point. In addition to the top, even Champagnie, he can hit 3 threes in a short period of time. There's so many places they can go with the basketball. And I thought that run by Vassell really was putting their depth on display of how many guys they have that are capable of having big stretches of the game offensively. So many impact players in their rotation.
I think every team has one guy whose 3-pointers are worth a little bit more just because they're such backbreakers. And for them, it's Vassell. And some of it's what you're saying is that he can get hot. He had 2 in a row. He had only 8 points in that third quarter, but he had 2 threes in a row and a huge block shot in between that. And it was at a moment when the game was close. I was talking about how Portland would claw back in, and you'd say, okay, let's see if they can tilt the momentum. And right as they got there, that's when Vassell made all those big plays. And I think you're right. That really was the game, because after that, San Antonio was in control for the rest of the way. Vassell, though, do you agree with me about his 3-pointers? Like, every team has a guy for Denver, Tim Hardaway Jr., but they feel worse than others. I don't really know why.
They're louder. They are louder. Yeah. And because, again, it's, you've got a lot to deal with this team. So, he's going to get his opportunities, man. And this is a guy that was basically, their top go-to guy along with Keldon Johnson before they got Wemby and they started trying to win games and get to this level. Those are the 2 guys carrying the offense. So he's more than capable. He's a fun guy to watch, man. He plays with a lot of bounce, incredible amount of confidence. I don't think he's seen a shot that he doesn't believe is going in. So he was, to me, the tipping point in this game. And look, and that's why they're so good, because this night it was him. It could be somebody else on another night when you're expecting certain performances out of, I think, Wemby, Castle, and Fox, pretty consistent, like what you're going to get from those 3 guys. It's guys like Vassell and Keldon Johnson, Dylan Harper, just so much to deal with. Even Luke Cornett played really well in this game, in his opportunities around the rim and being so active. They've done a great job building this roster, man. And
they really have.
It's really, and it reminds you of really does remind you of back when I was in the league, and, you're looking at the run that they had, that long run, because they drafted the right guys and they built it all around them, and high character guys that were easy to play with. And that's what they've done again. They've high character, massive young talent, and they all like playing together. They get along. Wemby's become so much more of a leader vocally. I like watching how engaged he is with his teammates, even when he's out of the game. A lot of superstars will go over there, man, and they just kind of sit there and they get in their rest, right? They're just thinking about kind of what they need to do when they come back in and chilling. He doesn't chill when he's over there. He's constantly standing up. He's constantly communicating with those guys. Castle has said it multiple times this year. It's really easy when your best player is this unselfish and this easy to be around, consistent with his mood and demeanor. So they're fun, man. Great start to it. Kind of what you would expect from them. Portland had to get out of the play-in to get there. And now you got this team, this elite team sitting there just resting for a week, just waiting. Same thing with Oklahoma City. That's kind of what you expected those 2 games to look like.
On the Trailblazers side, Deni Avdija and Scoot Henderson, I thought both had very good games. Deni in particular just was able to do dynamic things. Scoot had some speed and made some shots that I don't know how much he'll make those, but he made some shots in this one. The rest of the guys I thought looked like they lacked, they weren't dynamic enough for how difficult it is to score on the Spurs. And what I mean by that is they have great perimeter defenders. So it's not like you can just, I got one thing I do and I get by them every time. You have to kind of mix it up to be able to find seams. And then when you're there, you have to finish around or just decide with Wembanyama. And I thought Deni has that because he's just so crafty and he could do a lot of different things. Scoot has the speed, and he had a couple just got downhill really quickly. The other guys, you're watching it and you're trying to think, can the Blazers be meaningfully better? I think they can shoot better, but the other guys that they have, I'm not sure that there's enough. Toumani Camara, I'm not sure he's a guy that you can expect, he's going to make some incredible plays to create openings or finish in a really dynamic way over and over against the best rim protector in the NBA. And so for me, I think the Blazers can be better and probably will be better as this goes on. But I don't know that they're going to be their identity is going to be different. I think that's a limitation of their identity.
I think the only 2 guys that I would look at that potentially there's more there, like just on their own, because you have to get it on your own against them sometimes. I think Drew Holiday can be better than he was 4 for 15. Like he's got to be better. He's got to convert some of those plays at the rim. He's got to convert more opportunities offensively to take some of the pressure off Avdija. And then Shaedon Sharp is the only other guy, because athletically he can play against this defense. He can. He just doesn't have enough rhythm and timing. And by the time he did come back to the fold, like they were playing so well, they kind of had an identity how they were playing. It's almost like Shaedon Sharp now is trying to like fit in more. And he's their second best offensive player. So those are the two guys, maybe a little out of Jeremy Grant, but for the most part, he's like a corner 3-point shooter now. Klingen's going to shoot mostly threes. He's not going to get a lot of lob stuff at the rim with Wemby on the floor. So he's got to make, he had 3 threes in this game. Maybe next game he takes 5. And if you can make 2 or 3 of those, it could be a difference. Drew Holiday has to be better than 4 for 15. And then whatever you can get more out of Shaedon Sharp, who was 4 for 13. So you got 8 for 28 out of Holiday and Sharp. Obviously, that's just not going to be good enough. I thought Avdija was great. And when I look at Avdija, I look at a guy that is so committed to playing his style. He gets downhill with such force and intensity, and he doesn't really care who's back there. And in fact, he had one play where he went straight at Wemby, who's back there, and you're thinking like, oh, Wemby's going to swallow this up. And he comes at you so hard and hits you with a little bit of his shoulder that Wemby actually just kept retreating backwards. Obviously stopped, made a little pull-up 15-footer. I love the commitment to get to your style. Yeah. And there aren't a ton of guys in the league that play quite like he does. Giannis sort of plays that way too. Like just committed to relentless pressure off the dribble coming at you and see what you can do with it. He was ready for the moment. I didn't know how he was going to play in this game against this level defense and this level paint protection and rim protection, because that's where he has to get. So for him to come out, go 12 for 21 for 30 points, 10 boards, man, your best players showed up in a big way. Now you've got to get some of the supporting cast to raise their game.
I do think Portland will be competitive in this series, though. Like this one, there was just a lot of energy in his Wemby's debut. He stepped up. He made a lot of shots in the game. You were constantly chasing. I think that was part of it, is Portland was constantly chasing in this game, and that can be exhausting to do. We'll see if the Spurs get off to such a hot start in game 2, but I do think that they can be competitive. My last note here, Legs, San Antonio wins the theatrics of the weekend. They did a great job. Like, the playoffs should feel big. I'm a big believer in this. The playoffs should feel big. You have to make it feel like a big moment. And I just thought the Spurs did a great job. The shirts, the Fiesta Court, and then having Robinson and Duncan there for Wemby's debut, it just felt big. Like, watching that game felt like the biggest game of the weekend. And I credit San Antonio and their game operations team for really setting the stage well.
Completely agree, man. I agree with you too about the David Robinson, Tim Duncan thing. Like,
it's
you
cool,
know, those two guys who have a great relationship, great friendship, but to get 2 guys like that, you're not just talking about 2 former players. You're talking about 2 of the all-time great bigs in this league, right? Yeah. And champions and MVPs. And for those 2 guys to be sitting there together, although Tim Duncan just looked a little bit kind of like, I don't know, he almost looked like he was just kind of watching the nightly news. Like, he's just kind of sitting there. I loved it. Every time they showed him, he's just kind of playing with his beard.
What play was there? There was like the best highlight of that. I can't remember which one it was. Wemby just did something spectacular, and they cut right to Tim Duncan. And
there was one play early in the game, and I don't remember what he did, but it was an absurd Wemby type thing that only he can do. And it was the only time they both were laughing, actually, when they cut to him real quick. They were both laughing, and it was almost like, can you believe this dude? Like, that was and I thought that was just like the ultimate like compliment you could give Wemby, to like, wow, 2 guys like that. But then the rest of the game, it was more like just kind of like, very subdued, chill, and sitting there. They got him to wear the T-shirts that they handed out to everybody in the lower bowl, which I thought was pretty funny too. Yeah, they both put them on like good sports. Yeah, and man, that's I agree with you. It felt big. That city, it feels back. They know what it feels like to have a team like this. Yep. And they feel like they're just on the threshold of what is about to be the next 10 plus years. And they're just beginning it. So what a fun feeling that is for that fan base.
Well, perhaps the most consequential game of the weekend goes to the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. The Magic get the win 112-101. And this game was so interesting. And I have to, like I said at the top, we watched that first play-in game and we broke it down, and it was just like, man, the Magic just don't seem like they have it. Is the spirit there? Have they been quitting? The vibes were terrible. They come back and get a blowout win over Charlotte in the play-in, which we haven't talked about. But that was just a wire-to-wire dominant win. And then we had another wire-to-wire. Actually, it wasn't wire-to-wire. They did trail by 1 point in the first 2 minutes of the game, but after that, they did not. Then in this game, wire-to-wire, and this is the first note, and you kind of referenced it. They looked enormous compared to Detroit. And Detroit is a big physical team. That's their advantage. They just defend with physicality and toughness. And yet, I was watching this game, I was just like, man, Orlando is bigger at every position. The physicality doesn't bother them. In fact, they embrace it. Jalen Suggs started the game off just incredibly well. They had more energy to start and put Detroit on their heels. And to me, I looked at this and I was like, the scary thing if I'm Detroit is that their biggest strength, physicality and size, was a weakness in this matchup.
Here's the thing that really stood out to me. Their strength and physical toughness to play through the holding, the grabbing, the bumping, the contact. Detroit thrives on that. That's what they do, man. They beat you up. They're bullies. They're bullies defensively because that's how their roster's built. It plays to their strengths. They were an elite defensive team this year, and they're extremely physical. And I got news for you. That's not really affecting Banchero, who's a big, strong dude. It's not affecting Wagner, who plays at 6'10", handles it, plays through all that stuff. Desmond Bane is a guy that can play through that, physically strong enough. Wendell Carter can do it. Suggs can do it. He's Anthony Black. Like these guys are almost like they showed up like, hey, we want to step out into the alley. We're cool with that. And so it's an interesting thing. Like usually Detroit, it stands out. Like for instance, Charlotte the other night. Charlotte is a team that really requires freedom of movement. They need space. They need finesse. They need pace. And when they do that, they can embarrass you because of the way they can score, the way they move it, how fast they play. And all of their guys can have stretches where they light it up. They want a pickup game. Detroit wants a pickup game, but it's more like that older man pickup game. Like we're going to be a lot of holding and grabbing out here. I can tell you right now, you're not getting to the rim very easily because we're going to foul you because in a pickup game, no one's shooting free throws. So we're just going to eat up our fouls and we're eventually going to break your will. Guess what? They're like, that's cool. That we can play this way. This is fun because they're big, strong, and physical. Now they're offensively challenged. And I thought their shot making in this game was as good as I've seen all year. And they didn't light you up from the 3-point line. Yeah. Suggs had a great start. Yeah, it was not even about that. It was some of the tough twos that they made. They made an incredible number of difficult shots in this game. I don't know that I've seen Orlando do that all year. So they got that. And you wonder if that is sustainable. But one thing that is sustainable is they're not going to be a team that's going to get pushed around the court. Yeah. They're just not. They can stand up to Detroit, and Detroit has their own offensive issues. And on this night, those were way more apparent than Orlando's, and that's why the Magic were able to go in there and get a win. And I think going into the game, Adam, they knew it. They knew they're not going to push us around.
100%.
They looked comfortable right from the tip.
Yeah. And
you were wondering, a lot of younger teams wouldn't have looked that comfortable.
Well, I actually think that was the story of the game for me. That and the close. We'll get to Franz Wagner. But the start of this game, Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Wendell Carter, and Paolo Banchero. I just thought those guys, Franz Wagner was good at the beginning of the game. He does things. But I thought those other four guys, they came with right from the jump energy. We have to punch first. We're going to punch first. And I thought the Pistons kind of eased into the game. They wanted to settle into it. It wasn't really until Dennis Jenkins comes into the game that I thought the Pistons started to match the energy. And some of this, when I say energy, if Jalen Suggs starts the game 0 of 3, maybe we don't say that they had energy, but he didn't. He hit some big-time shots right out of the gate. And it just felt like the Magic were dialed all the way up to 11 right from the start. And it took the Pistons 6 minutes or so to dial themselves up. And by that point, they were behind and they were trailing. And I just thought it set the tone. I don't know if that's sustainable, if that's just a character trait, but it was a big difference here. And it also allowed, I thought, Paolo Banchero to settle in and kind of by the time he started to really take over and press his advantage, there was a comfortable lead to it. And then I just thought some of his shot making early in this game was just phenomenal, as it was, by the way, last time they were in the playoffs. This was a big storyline. Paolo, inefficient in the regular season, but in the playoffs has been able to like create some tough offense. He did that in this game one.
He played great, man. He played great. And he and Wagner, because of their size advantage, because they're going to be guarded in this series by some guys that are smaller, that are great defenders and that have great quickness and reach and activity, but they're not as big. And if you can get the ball on the floor initially against them, and get a shoulder on some of these guys, right? Thompson and Holland and guys like that, you've got a chance then to play through it, because they're big and they're strong, and they were not phased. They were not knocked off their lines. They shot 49% from the field. Now, both of these teams, they made 10 threes each, and they both shot really poor percentage from the three. I got news for you. That's going to be every game in this series.
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if either of these teams has a night where they make 15, 16 threes efficiently. That's just not who they are. They're going to do it different ways. And one thing Detroit's going to count on, they're going to get you on the glass. They got out-rebounded by 6. They're going to turn you over. They had 3 more turnovers than they were able to force. If those things don't go their way, that's going to be a problem in this series. Points in the paint. Pistons had 34. They gave up 54. Like they're supposed to win that.
They are number one in the NBA in points in the paint at 58 per game. They were held to 34 points in the paint, and it didn't feel like they just missed some shots. That was walled off because of the physicality. So yeah, that's a huge one. 24 points below your season average for points in the paint.
And so now obviously that points to one very specific person for the Detroit Pistons. Okay, I'm sorry, but
it's tough.
Listen, Jalen Duren took 4 shots. 4 shots in 33 minutes. This is a guy that's like you're now turned into your co-star. This is a guy that's turned into an all-star caliber player. This is a guy that is going to get a lot of votes for most improved player of the year. This is a guy that I saw, 3 or 4 times this year, and every time I did was massive in the game. And including a night when Cade didn't play, when he had dropped 35 points and like 15 rebounds. He's a force. He was the quietest game I've seen him play all year. Now, I will say that I do think we're not the only ones that's seeing that. You don't think they're seeing that when they watch the film? Jalen Duren's going to have a big response. There's no question. Now, will he play great? I don't know. But one thing I can guarantee, you're going to be noticing Jalen Duren a lot in game 2. And you didn't notice him at all in game 1. And that, when you looked at the front line of the Magic, Wagner's doing his thing. Banchero's doing his thing. Wendell Carter played really well. And you're getting that quiet of a night out of Duren, you're in trouble. And so look for Duren to have a big bounce back game. I'd be very surprised if he's not a big force in game 2. Now, look, maybe it's still not enough. We'll see. Depends how Orlando plays offensively. But to me, that was the glaring problem here. These things we're alluding to, the rebounding, the points in the paint. And then you look at Jalen Duren's line, 3 for 4, 8 points in 33 minutes. That's maybe by his own account might be his poorest game of the year. And it came at a bad time because game 1, you want to set the tone for the series. The last thing you want to do in a 1-8 is make the 8 think that they're going to win the series. And right now, Orlando believes they're going to win this series. And so Jalen Duren, to me, is obviously the guy we've got to look at in game 2 and put a spotlight on. He's got to show up in a big way.
When I say the Pistons felt like they were trying to settle into the game and settle into the playoffs, he's probably number one guy I think about with this, where it just didn't feel, it felt like, all right, let me feel out this game. Let me feel out how it's going. Meanwhile, the Magic came out and just threw haymakers. And so I do expect more energy from him. It'll be a huge storyline. But I have to credit Wendell Carter Jr. I thought he was so good in this game. And I like Wendell Carter Jr. I think he can do a variety of things. But I thought the job he did on him on the boards defensively, I just thought he was really impactful in this game. And quite frankly, it's not just, I'm not just looking at the stats and saying, oh, he had 17, Duren had 8. He just was the better player in this game. If you didn't know better, you would have watched this and said, oh, Orlando has the better big man. So I was really impressed with him. And I think to your point about Duren, he has to battle the entire front court of the Magic, that entire size they have. But Wendell Carter Jr. in particular is going into game 2 thinking, my job is to shut this guy down, and I'm 1 for 1 so far at it.
Yeah, look, it's funny you said that about Carter because he's one of those guys. Like if you every time, and we do it throughout the year several times, we'll talk about underrated players, and he doesn't ever pop into my head, but then every time I watch him, I think, man, that guy's underrated. Yep. So I'm gonna have to write his name down in my phone and keep it. So next time the conversation comes up, I'll reference it because I don't want to forget Wendell Carter. He is, man, and he's he can step out and shoot the ball. He's very good on the offensive glass. He plays hard. He's really smart. And they got the better of Duren in this game. But again, I have a lot of respect for Duren. I've really enjoyed watching his growth this year. He was so consistently good for them. I expect him to play much, much better. He's not the only one, by the way. There's a couple other guys I look at have got to be better. And the reason is because look, Duncan Robinson's going to run around and chase shots. He didn't get a ton in this game. They did a pretty good job guarding him. He was 3 for 8, 3 for 6 from the three. You'd love to see him get more threes, but look, they know that. They're going to face guard him as much as they can. So where are the other shots going to come from? You got to sacrifice something. If you're dealing with Cade and Duren in the two-man, you're face guarding Robinson. So where are there shots to be had? I'm going to tell you, there are shots to be had from Tobias Harris and Danish Jenkins. Yeah. Those guys are going to get looks, and they collectively were 2 for 13 from the three. And most of those were clean. And look, I know it's not a good three-point shooting team, but in the playoffs, when teams are going to, game by game, even force the ball to more areas of weakness for the other team, you're going to get looks. You've got to shoot better than that. I thought Tobias Harris in particular, I felt some groaning going on some of his misses, with the crowd. Because you're like, man, can somebody take some pressure off of the attention that Cade and Duren are going to get? That's how you soften it up, by being a threat. And I know that it's been a struggle for them, but both of those guys are capable. Jenkins and Tobias Harris, and neither guy shot the ball well enough to have an impact in the game.
I think those two things are really, if you're Pistons fans, why this series scares you now, especially being down 0-1. The size advantage going the other way, where that's typically yours, and then the lack of initiators on offense. I mean, I mentioned how Jenkins checks into the game and immediately brought in energy. It was a really good first 3 minutes, but then you look at how he finished the game, 6 points, 1 of 7 shooting. Can he be that other creator that they're counting on him to be? Because if not, there really aren't other options. There aren't other guys that you're like, well, that guy's going to step up and create a bunch of offense. So I agree, that's a big one. On the size thing, though, I forgot to mention this earlier, Legs, but one way this size really manifested in this game, the size advantage, I felt like Orlando, who also struggles, by the way, just to get good offense, one way they got good offense maybe a dozen times in this game, throwing it over the top to somebody who had a mismatch inside. And I'm not saying it was Paolo or just the bigs or anything like that. Sometimes it would be Franz Wagner or Tristan da Silva, a guy who just cut into the basket, got somebody on his hip because they were undersized, pinned them, and they were able to go high-low basically from the top of the key. It felt like they got a dozen scoring opportunities just off of that high-low action again. And that's one of those things where if you're Detroit, you're not used to teams having that advantage over you, and I think that one will be consistent for Orlando.
That's a good point. I like it. And look, everybody's now wondering what's this answer going to be, because now the narrative about not winning at home in the playoffs. Oh man, right? It's been forever. And you could see a little bit when JB Bickerstaff was leaving the court, just I think almost in some ways maybe just surprised and disappointed that they didn't play better and answer this challenge better. Orlando had the tune-up game, and they were able to come in, and a couple of them, and they were able to come in and do their thing. And because they're in rhythm, and again, I think stylistically, they were not, running onto the floor thinking man, this is going to be a physical game. How are we going to manage it? They like it. And so now it's a matter of who's going to have enough finesse mixed in there in terms of shot making to be able to overcome it. And in the first game, it was clearly Orlando. Think about this. Against this defense, their front line went 23 for 37 from the field. You can't play better than Banchero, Wagner, and Wendell Carter did in this game as a front line. Up for the challenge, because then you've got margin for error with the other guys. Bane can have a night where he doesn't shoot great. And anybody, Anthony Black and these perimeter players, you're not as concerned about it when your front line is handling their business and are that unbothered by the physicality in the lane, and they're just able to get to their spots and do their thing. That was the difference in the game, man. They looked like the team that was much more comfortable with how this game was being played. Detroit has to obviously you can't go down 0-2. Now, in this series with how fickle the shooting's going to be, even down 0-2, I'm not going to sit there and go, no way Detroit can come back. I'm not doing that. Not in this series.
Right.
But down 0-2, historically, you lose those first two games at home. Historically, the numbers say you're not winning the series. So, and I'm going to be there. Adam, we'll be there Wednesday night, man, for game 2.
This is your game? Oh, man.
This is our game Wednesday night. So it took on a whole new level of meaning with what happened yesterday.
And that's a long break then. If it's Wednesday, that's a long break to kind of sit on this and go and figure things out. So a little curious. Real quickly, though, Franz Wagner was great in the fourth quarter. And true or false, Legs, the Magic haven't had this. This has been a season from hell for Orlando because they just haven't been able to see the roster that they have. They put it together at the 11th hour. True or false that this is actually what the Orlando Magic should have looked like, that they're tapping into the potential that has evaded them for 82 games because of injury?
Yeah, definitely. And you could say the same thing about last year. Last year they didn't have Bane. So that was the big answer for their issues with shooting. And he can't do it alone, but it's obviously a big change for what their perimeter looks like. But you think about it, last year it was the same thing. Bankero and Wagner just get on the floor together. Because they were the only team in the league whose top 2 scorers were 6'10" and up. Yeah. It's a different look for a lot of teams. They both handle the ball. They've got versatility. It's a tough matchup, both guys. If you're not out there together playing with this guy you brought in to supplement, right, with his shooting and his spacing, you're never going to be able to reach your potential. And there were times this year where it looked like they were dead in the water. And now it's crazy to think like they've probably right now, as we sit here, are playing their best basketball they've played all year, right when they start this 1-8 series. It's nuts, and it's almost like bad luck for the Pistons that's the case. A lot of 1-8s, it doesn't matter how the 8 seed's playing. Like you're just going to come in there, you're going to take them to task like you saw Oklahoma City do. That's not the case here, man. This is a team that's ready for this fight physically. Now it's a matter of execution, and they were just better.
All right, let's take a break because those are the 2 games we were going to go deep on. But you were calling the Lakers-Rockets game, which had a bit of a surprise ending, even though the home team won. We're going to talk about that series. Then we're going to bounce around and talk about all the other ones real quickly on the other side of this break. New FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $250 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props and your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your picks with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
It's sunglass season. I've got so many pairs of Shady Rays around my house. I actually have one right here sitting on my desk. And why? Because they have this incredible deal. Because we all know those moments when you forgot your sunglasses somewhere and you're worried. You're like, man, those were expensive. I just bought them. And now how am I ever going to get them back? Well, Shady Rays has changed the game with this incredible offer. They're sunglasses that are made for real life, seriously good looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. But the wild part is if you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So you can wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Check out their website. Go to shadyrays.com and use our code ALLCITY, all one word, ALLCITY, for 50% off of 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Back here, segment 2 with Tim Legler. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. If you like playoff breakdowns, we're always talking about the games, the actual games. That's really all this show is about, is the games. So make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. We're back on Wednesday. this week, so we'll have a bunch of game 2s in the books. Another game 1, though, Legs. The Lakers got the win 107-98. The big news here was that Kevin Durant, we didn't know he was going to be out, and he was out for game 1. Luka and Reeves are obviously out, so this was a series where 3 of the top 4 players in the series were out. But the Lakers got the win, and they got it, thanks in part to some red-hot three-point shooting, 53%, 10 of 19. Not a high volume, but it was Luke Kennard's 5 for 5 from the three-point line, 9 of 13 overall that stood out. You were close. You were calling this game. So what was it about this game? What happened and what stood out?
The first one, here's something funny. So we're doing the coaches' interviews before the game, and JJ Redick's in the green room with us, and we're doing our typical, interview with him before the game. And I think he's, this is before you know anything about Kevin Durant, and he seemed confident, like he thought his group was in a good place. He felt like they were going to play really, really well. But the news literally came in while we were in the meeting with him.
Wow.
And it broke. Like Shams Charania reported it first. That's where it first was reported. Kevin Durant will be missed game 1. And it was just kind of like, that news came in to a producer's phone in the meeting, and it's like, it comes up, and then JJ's like, wait, who? Like, Kevin Durant's out. So now look, there's going to be no sympathy on the part of the Lakers. They're going into this game without Luka Doncic, without Austin Reeves, right? They're trying to figure out, like, how can we just, because you don't know when these guys are coming back. There's still an indefinite timetable for their return. I don't know if we're going to see them this round. If the Lakers somehow survive this round, how early in the next round, like, I have no idea. Nobody does. Right. So they're shorthanded, and now you get this break, really a break for the Lakers. There was no other way to describe it. You don't have to deal with Durant. The Rockets can be offensively challenged themselves, even with Durant some nights. Now you take that out of the mix. Changed everything for the dynamic and the flow of this game defensively, how the Lakers could play, the pressure that it was going to put on Sengun to run the show and be this guy that was like winning his one-on-ones so that he could draw guys and his passing would become a factor. That never happened in the game. And then you get LeBron, had a great start to the game, scoring and mostly facilitating, but it really came down to this. This was the best game of Luke Kennard's career. It was Luke Kennard's best game of his career, and he's been a really good player in this league for a long time. And he's number 1 all-time career three-point percentage. I think he might be. This guy can really play. He can really shoot it. He's never had a game that had more consequence for the way he played than this game. And he really settled it. He ended it because there was no answer for him getting 27 points on you. Where was the offense going to come from? That's where it came from. And you don't really know that with this Lakers team without Luka and Austin Reeves, but that was where it came from. Luke Kennard had the answer. I thought LeBron James played very, very well. And then up and down the roster, Ayton played well. Hachimura played well. But Kennard was special. And that was, to me, the tipping point.
I think another way you could say it for the Lakers is that nobody played bad. And sometimes that's just as important in a playoff game as you get, okay, everybody was solid in this game and you got a couple outlier performances from a couple key role players. But what else stood out to you about this one? I mean, this series is weird to analyze because presumably Kevin Durant will be back. And so game 1 almost feels like a weird, very important game, but one that maybe is not at all telling of where the series is headed. So what else stood out? What else can we glean from this based on the game?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was, Sengun was not good enough. Like, he's got to be better in this game. You don't have Kevin Durant. You're an all-star yourself. And, you get a lot of credit for your all-around game. He had a little bit late that made his line look better. And as it was, he was 6 for 19, 19 points, 19 shots to get it. Was not the controlling factor that he was going to have to be without Kevin Durant. That was one thing. The other thing was the Rockets get a lot of offensive rebounds, and they had 21 in this game, but they weren't converting those into points. And actually, even their numbers look better because they got some garbage stuff late off the offensive glass. It was not a factor. Normally, they get 15 offensive rebounds a game, 16 a game. They convert that into 18, 19 points. It's a big part of who they are. It's the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the league. Historically, one of the best offensive rebounding seasons we've ever seen. It wasn't something that they were able to turn into points enough to really pound the Lakers. And so the Lakers survived that. They also survived turning the ball over 18 times. Those weren't turned in to enough going the other direction. So the fact that the Lakers, because look, Lakers shot 61% from the field in this game. It's like unheard of for a playoff game, particularly against an elite defense. Rockets number 6 in the league defensively this year. 61% against that defense. The problem is they turn the ball over 18 times. So that's why the game's like closer than it should be when you shoot like that. So the Lakers survived a couple of things that they didn't do particularly well. Hold them to one shot and protect the ball. They didn't do either thing, and they still didn't pay the price. That kind of stood out to me as well.
Let's go through these other games really quickly. Cleveland gets the win over Toronto, 126-113. Controlled the game. We're up big for most of it. In fact, they built, I believe, at one point like a 20-plus point lead in this game. Controlled. Are you surprised at all that Cleveland was able to control this one?
Not really, because offensively, they're a lot to deal with. And Toronto was a really good defensive team this year. But again, this is one of those situations where these guys collectively getting a taste of this with this particular group for the first time. It's almost kind of what you would expect against a just absolute juggernaut offensively. They'll be better, in my opinion. Toronto will be better. I think game 2 will be a fourth quarter game where I think it could be anybody's game. I'm not shocked that Cleveland came out and hit them with this and played this well offensively at home in their first game with Toronto, sort of putting their toe in the water, what this playoff thing's all about. Cleveland's got experience with it. Obviously, they wanted to get off to a great start, and they put up a big number, 54% from the field, 50% from the three-point line. They're capable of doing that.
Yep. That's the thing. Cleveland, the Cavs are the wild card for me in the playoffs this year, certainly in the East. And it's because I think their upside is so high. The question is just, will they be able to, tap into that, since they too haven't been able to play with their big four a whole lot. That game 2, by the way, is tonight. The line on that one is 9.5. So Vegas at least thinks that they will.
Oh, and one last thing real quick. We got to give a shout out to Max Strus. Max Strus played great in this game.
Love that guy, man. I'm telling you. I made a big deal about him all year. Do you remember this? Because I kept saying, I don't know when he's going to be back, but I feel like that guy unlocks their identity in a lot of ways.
Man, it got to the point so late in the year that honestly, I think people were starting to have questions if we were going to see him at all. Whatever was going on with him. When you get that deep, is he going to have an impact? He was great. And his shooting and movement, and he's tough. He guards. You're right. He's a big piece, and it's like he reminded you on Saturday how big a piece he is, because they didn't have an answer for everything you're dealing with Mitchell and Harden, and their front line could be a problem. And then you got Max Strus giving you 24 points off the bench. That's a lot.
Let's go to the other games here. The Knicks get the win over the Hawks, 113-102. Story kind of similar to the other one in that they controlled the game. It wasn't quite as much of a blowout as the Cavs game was, but they controlled. They were just in control of this one. What do you make of the Knicks taking a 1-0 lead?
Well,
we'll probably break this game down, by the way, on the next one. We'll probably break this series down on Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure, because they got game 2 tonight, so we'll have now 2 games in the books. Give you a better feel. It's similar to what I just said about Toronto in a way with Atlanta. I mean, C.J. McCollum, clearly he's got a lot of playoff experience, and, you bring him in for that reason, and he looked like it. 26 points, he looked pretty comfortable. I didn't think they looked comfortable collectively overall, and what they found out was the Knicks, Brunson had this incredible start to the game, which when you're the higher seed playing at home, and a lot of people, you're always nervous. If you're a Knicks fan, how are we going to start this series? You know what I mean? You got so much hope, and it's been so long, and they're so desperate to win it. The anxiety could set in. Brunson removed all of that. So when your best player comes out and plays that great early in the game, everybody settles down. The anxiety goes away. But now you're going to need somebody else to be there later, and it was Karl-Anthony Towns. So they're 2 best offensive players. They had different halves completely, but one guy being great in each half turns out was enough. Now for Atlanta, Jalen Johnson was good. He wasn't great. He wasn't efficient enough. Not as good as they need him to be. C.J. McCollum played great. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 6 for 17. That's not the type of year he had. So Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you're not winning this series unless those guys are a lot more efficient and they get to their number in doing so. Let's see what their answer is going to be in game 2.
I did a full show yesterday with Dane Moore on the Minnesota-Denver series. So if you want a deep dive on that one, we went pretty deep. I cover the Nuggets, he covers the Wolves, so it gave you kind of both perspectives of it. You can check out that. The other 2 games, though, that I think follow the same storyline. Boston just destroyed Philadelphia 123-91, a complete dismantling, completely shut them down, completely carved them up. And then the Oklahoma City Thunder, surprise, surprise, 119-84. I think the storyline for me, especially in the Oklahoma City series against Phoenix, but it's a little bit true of Boston, Philly, when you're outmatched at the core strength of your opponent, and in this case for OKC, on-ball pressure. Can you handle our team's ability to swarm and put pressure on the ball? The answer for Phoenix was no, and that's why this game was not close. At any point, at 0-0, this game wasn't close. You could say the same thing for Boston and Philadelphia. Those are my only notes. If you can't slow down your opponent's biggest strength, you're probably in for some trouble.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I called, along with Dave Pasch, game 1 last year for Oklahoma City, and they're sitting there as the 1 seed waiting on the play-in to end. And so some teams escaped the play-in. Last year it was Memphis, and now you got this team. And last year, remember the big gap they had as the 1 seed, so they were literally picking their spots for like 2 weeks of how they were going to rest guys, and they sat there with a week off while the play-in was going on. And you talk about a team running onto the floor out of the tunnel, like it was literally like lions running to some meat that was thrown in. That's what they looked like. And so it was a 50-point game in the third quarter last year in game 1 against Memphis. And now, I kind of had the feeling that this is what they were going to hit Phoenix with. Like, you're just not ready for a rested team.
That's so true.
No, seriously, like for a rested team that has this much ball pressure and fresh legs and depth and all the different guys that can do it, you're just not prepared for that. Now you adjust. I'm not saying that they make this a long series, but they're clearly going to be a lot better, I think, in game 2 than they were in the first game. That's just too much to run out onto the court and be faced with when they're that fresh, waiting to play a game that means something in the postseason. Man, they really set the tone.
I'm not trolling when I say this, Legs. I mean it sincerely. I think one of Oklahoma City's biggest challenges is that they're just not in that many close games. I was thinking this when I was watching them the other day, up 20 points in like the second quarter. And you're like, man, how many times are they in this situation where they're just up so comfortably by halftime that it's just expected? No other team you're up that often by that much. And it's almost weird that later on in the playoffs, they're going to have these close games and you might get 3-4 in a row. I don't know when the last time the Thunder had 3 or 4 straight close games. But yes, dominant against Phoenix, and Phoenix just looked
real quick, just to show you how dominant their defense was and just backing up what we were just talking about, a fresh, rested, elite defensive team. Like, this is what you run into. The Phoenix Suns had 24 points in the paint, 24, and 2 fast break points. Like, I mean, you're good luck. I mean, you've got to get something easy against them, and you've got to be able to score in the paint, against them to a certain extent, because they're flying all over the floor, closing out to the 3-point line, and they're so good at flooding to the paint too. But I mean, those to me are 2 big numbers that jumped off the page. They got nothing easy, and they got nothing at all in the open floor against a defense that wasn't quite set up, because once they're set, forget it. I mean, they communicate as well or better than any team in the league defensively.
So you said we should have done this for the game 1s. Let's do it for game 2s. 1 road team won out of 8 tries in game 1. How many road teams do you think will get a win in game 2? You don't have to tell me who. You could just say the number.
I don't want to. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I want to predict exactly who. I think we'll get 2. I think 2 in game 2.
Yeah. You look at Rockets, Lakers, you get Kevin Durant back. Houston is favored tonight, favored in their game 2 by 4.5 points. So, that one wouldn't surprise you. And then you just look around. Could the Hawks, Raptors, Blazers, Timberwolves, could one of those teams get one? I don't know if I'm counting on the 76ers.
All 3 of the games tonight. I think all 3 games we have tonight. Toronto at Cleveland, Atlanta at New York, and Minnesota at Denver. I think all 3 of these games are going to be close games in the second half. So then it comes down to executing, man, and just, making the plays when you have to. So I think you got a better chance. I don't know about how I feel about the Sixers. That was, and without Embiid, like, that felt demoralizing.
Yeah.
Boston, that was an absolute clinic that they put on them. So I don't know if there's a recovery there. I think Portland's going to come out and play well, play hard, and it still might not be enough against San Antonio. That's going to be tough. But again, Rockets, you get KD back for a game 2. That could have, a decidedly different look. And a Phoenix, that's tough, against OKC. So I think you got 3 games tonight, and then the Rockets, Lakers. Those 4 series, I think, give you the best chance for a road team to get a win.
All righty. We got a couple super chats that came in here. Producer Atticus, what do we got? Johnny Keene says, hey, Adam and Tim, does Tim think the Lakers will beat the Rockets now, or is it entirely dependent on KD and his injury and Luka's timeline?
I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say they're going to win the series. I mean, I still think, look, man, you're missing almost 60 points of just scoring. Forget about the playmaking. That's just the other thing I said on the air on the broadcast. This is pretty amazing. The Lakers are number 2 in the league in free throw attempts. Luka takes almost 40% of them. So you're thinking like, well, where's that going to come from? So, Kennard played out of his mind. I don't know that I'm going to pick him to win the series, but I do think now, based on what happened game 1, this now has the propensity to go long. And again, who knows? We get some surprise update at any point. If this series lasts over 2 weeks long, do you get at least one of those guys back potentially at the tail end of the series? What a difference that would make. So I think things got very, very interesting with the Durant injury. Because not only you don't expect him to play game 2, but is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be right? Because he did not look good warming up before the game. I mean, he was clearly frustrated. He was kind of gimping around a little bit. How much does that clear up in a short period of time where he's himself in game 2? And if you fall down 2-0, losing 2 road games, now you've really got a lot of work to do to figure out a way to overcome that.
We got one more from Johnny Keene. He says, George in chat said Oscar Schmidt, RIP. Any memories? Do you see this? Do you know anything about Oscar Schmidt?
I mean, never played against him, but just yes. I mean, just legendary, man. He was one of those mythical guys, man.
Yeah.
Like the
wilt of the rest of the world.
Yeah, exactly. It just showed up at international competitions, just dropping 40 on like best teams in the world. You're like, who's this guy? And then you'd watch him, and it just seemed like it was so easy for him. He wasn't like the most athletic guy, but he was incredible shooter, a great size, and he was he had ice water through his veins. I mean, that's the bottom line with Oscar Schmidt. Like, he was not fazed by any stage.
Yeah, that's incredible. Cue that outro music there, Atticus. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Legs, we got a show Wednesday, but then you're going to be there for the Detroit game, the Detroit-Orlando game. That's great. And then over the weekend, you got Denver, Minnesota. So can't wait, man. You're going to have some great insights from sitting courtside on some really big games. But we are back on Wednesday with another show, so make sure you're subscribed. Leave us a comment below, help the algorithm, and make sure you hit the like button for us on the way out. We'll see you guys Wednesday.
We all silly like the mayor.